Hello, everyone. Welcome to Reiki Radio. This is Yolanda, and today we have a special guest. We have a beautiful woman named Santana who is joining us to share about Reiki and children. Now, I have to tell you, I was so excited to interview Santana because I have never talked about this on the show. And from her story, we learned so much about how this technique can be very beneficial to children. And she shares with us about mindfulness and children, and even how she has made Reiki part of her family's lifestyle. So if you have some kids or you know people who do, you may find this very informative. It's really interesting. And I would say even for those of you who are educators, there are people now, certain schools that are implementing mindfulness into the schools for children. So I think we can all get a lot from this episode, and I can't wait for you to hear from Santana. But first, I want to invite you all again to join us in the Seeker Circle. If you haven't joined us there yet, it is a place where we are building community around, this journey of self-exploration. And the beauty, one of my favorite parts of this is that you get to interact with the guests that have come on the show. You can ask them your questions, anything you want to share, what may have come up for you when listening to their interviews, because we do some Facebook Live events. But on top of that, people have an opportunity to share and exchange whatever it is they're learning on this journey overall, and even asking questions and getting feedback from other people who are seeking just like you. So you can go to my Facebook page, Yuchi Wellness, and you will see a link where you can join us in the Seeker Circle, or you can also sign up for my newsletter at yuchi.com. That's YEWCHI.com. And you will get access not only to the Seeker Circle, but to my 22 days of transformation. It's a 22-day process, and it's absolutely free to help you dive deeper into your own energetic transformation and learning about you. So we're talking about that in the group as well. I hope to see you there. Now let's get into the show. Okay, so welcome to Reiki Radio. Today we have a beautiful guest joining us from Canada, which we've had a little bit of trouble connecting, so I'm so glad you're here and we got this figured out. So we are joined today with Santana, and Santana is the, I guess you would say, owner of Gypsy Avenue, and she works with Reiki and children. And so Santana, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited to be talking with you and sharing my story with everyone.
Yeah, I can't tell you. Okay, so, we have the Seeker Circle, and Santana shared some information about doing Reiki with children. And it's an interesting topic because a lot of people do wonder about it, but even in my practice, I haven't met that many people who actually teach children Reiki, and it's such a beautiful tool for them. So I wanted to start out with you sharing your story with us. How did you even get into Reiki and doing Reiki for children?
Well, of course, it's a long story for everybody, but I'll give you the short version. Well, I was always interested in the spiritual world since I was a little kid myself. And when I was younger, it was spells and crystals and tarot and ghosts and all that kind of stuff. And I had first learned about the spiritual world from Sylvia Browne. My mom had one of her books, and that's how I learned about spirit guides and the spirit world and all of that stuff. And I was really, really fascinated. And and then then into my 20s, I was really into reading personal development books about mindset and happiness and abundance and creating your best life, etc. And it was really to help me through some tough times I was going through. And then Reiki actually was introduced to me by my mother. She had become a practitioner, And then I also found out that my aunt was an advanced practitioner. And of course, this news came to me into my life when I really needed healing on many different levels. But I wasn't ready for it at the time. I had a really hard time accepting it, and I didn't take to it very easily at all. And I know during that time in my life, I was going through a spiritual awakening, and I had gotten to a point where it was just all too much for me. And it started to scare me. Knowing that your thoughts created your world, it really scared me because I was going through a tough time. So having some negative thoughts and stuff, and it actually just freaked me out a little bit. So I kind of stopped pursuing it and kind of closed myself off a little bit. And then fast forward to a handful of years later, and I was involved in a major car accident. And I really needed healing, but not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually, because I was going through quite a bit after that accident on lots of different levels. And it really propelled me into the next phase of my spiritual awakening. But this time was different. I felt really open. I felt ready, and there was no turning back this time. And so I made a lot of changes, learned a lot of things, reframed the outlook of my life and what I really, really wanted. And that's kind of when I started a meditation practice, which really helped with some of the anxiety that I was going through. And helped me come to terms with some of the things that had happened and understanding kind of why it happened. And then that's when Reiki popped up again. And, it's so funny the way it finds you when you need it. And this time I was definitely ready for it because I almost didn't really have a choice because it popped up so many times. And I would, obviously there's no such thing as coincidence, but it felt very random at the time. It would pop up in conversations, in ads, on social media, everywhere. So it's okay, I feel really, really drawn to this. I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I Googled local classes, and the first teacher that popped up, I ended up choosing her. And not because it was the first one. I really did my research, but I felt really, really drawn to her. So I kept going back to her website and, looking at her videos and reading her blogs, and I just felt really, really drawn to her, and she had a class coming up. So, of course, I signed up for it. And I just kind of knew it was meant to be. And as of today, I've taken all my levels with her and my teacher training with her. And my life has honestly just changed so much since becoming a Reiki practitioner. It's just, I didn't realize how much it was meant to be in my life.
Well, it's funny, even you say at the beginning, how you had a little bit of resistance at first, and then it came back around and it was the right time. I think that's really good for so many people to hear, because it's a lot of people with any technique in this realm, some people will step in and then they step away, and then there's sometimes guilt around that, right? But it always does come, really click with you when you're really ready. You're so right with that. I also want to say I'm glad that you pointed out that you researched your teacher and felt drawn to her, because a lot of people also question that, how to find the right teacher. And it's you really do want to check in and see who feels resonant with you, because there are so many lineages and so much information out there. So that's really cool that you, trusted yourself in that. So I know that you said that you also did some life coaching, and then even your daughter was part of your inspiration with Reiki. Is that right?
Yeah, it was actually my daughter was my main inspiration for getting into working with children in the first place. So I have two children. I have a 9-year-old daughter named Saleha, and a 6-year-old son named Torin. And they both are very, very into the spiritual realm. But it was actually my daughter who first inspired me to work with kids, because she always came to psychic fairs with me and spiritual events, and she just, would soak it all up, and she just loved it. And, all the other adults around us would just look at her in awe and just think she was, wise beyond her years, right? And so she had a really difficult time because she always wanted to connect with other kids that were into the same thing. And then so that kind of got me looking online. I looked into kids' spiritual events locally, and there really wasn't that much out there, unfortunately. And there was a couple. There was a Reiki class, and there were some small spiritual classes and some meditation classes, and of course yoga and stuff. But so there was one in particular that we went to, and she absolutely loved it, and she of course wanted more. And that's kind of, when I thought to myself, like, why can't I do this? She wants it, and, she was so involved, and I was involved, and it's something we both really enjoy doing together. So I was like, you know what, why not do this ourselves? And that is what started me on learning more and, coming up with ideas and brainstorming. And then that's shortly after that, I created the Spiritually Mindful Kids class. And I teach that locally here at a local wellness center. And
do you still teach that class?
Yeah, I have one coming up in January. And I also have a Reiki class coming up in January as well for kids.
Beautiful. And we'll make sure to tell people how to look that up as well.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things with that, I want to say, because I want you to share like the tools that you use or what you have noticed really help children to connect with this. But it stands out what you're saying, because there are a lot of people who notice that their children are sensitive, or they notice that their children are like tuned into certain things and they just don't know how to help their child through it. So I think it's really cool that you paid attention and took your daughter to these events. What was that like for you, like watching her and her connection to all of this work? And then which tools did you start implementing in the classes that you teach?
Watching her has always been quite fascinating because she always kind of naturally just knew what to do. She was always drawn to crystals, and she would just randomly pick certain ones, and they always ended up being the ones she needed. And then she would actually hand out crystals to the family. Like, she always just knew which ones, and it was just kind of interesting. And she began meditating, and I would just find her in the mornings before we would even wake up, and she'd be at the little altar, and she'd be meditating. And I think that really helped with her self-confidence and stuff, because I know she has a little bit of a hard time making friends at school and people and meeting people on her level. And so that really kind of showed me how important this kind of stuff is for children, to help with their anxieties and just allow them to connect to something other than technology and just doing schoolwork all the time. It's like there's just so much more out there, and it allows them to understand their feelings more, I think, and get a better connection with themselves and kind of the world, I guess. So yeah,
that's
and then
huge.
Same thing with yeah. I mean, it's really great. Like, I mean, the biggest thing I noticed it really helps with kids is anxiety and being in social surroundings, being calmer and understanding their energies and other people's energies, and knowing, like, kind of their energetic boundaries, like what they can handle and what they can't, and helping them through those kind of situations, which can be normally kind of tough for them because they don't really understand it. So, yeah.
It's so funny you say that. I always joke, and I hear people, like even clients all the time, say, why didn't I know these things when I was younger? Or, gosh, I wonder what my life would have been like had I known this when I was younger. Yeah. So it's like, even listening to what you say, it's like, my goodness, how beautiful this is, that you not only do this work with your children, but hopefully it will inspire people listening to know that, this is a great idea, because we all would have been probably a lot better off if we learned this stuff
I would have
sooner.
Yeah, I would have loved to have known more about this on a simpler level, like on a child level, because like I said, I was introduced to Sylvia Browne and stuff when I was quite young. So, imagine a 9-10-year-old trying to read one of her books, right? Like, that was kind of a daunting task, but I loved it so much, so I always tried, right? And then just interacting with family members that were into the same things and helped me out and stuff. But it was always on an adult level, and it's just not quite the same. And then knowing that no other kid kind of understands the same things as you, it was kind of tough. And then, so yeah, like I would have loved to have classes like this when I was a kid, but.
Totally. So what is it that you do share with the kids? So your spiritually minded kids classes, what do those entail? What do they consist of?
Well, I teach at Wellness Within in St. Albert here in Canada. And really, it's just like every class is very different. No class is the same. So, and you don't have to worry about coming to the one before to know what we're doing in the next one kind of thing. I make it easy. It's not like a series. So mostly like we learn about like different mindfulness techniques and how to be, present in the moment, how to control your emotions and get them to understand energies. Their favorite part of the class is crystal work. So that's usually saved for the second half of the class because we spend a little bit more time on that because it is their favorite. And there's obviously a lot to learn when it comes to crystals, and they would just sit there and play with crystals all day if they could. So, so we do that. And there's, we do like coloring activities, and there's like printouts, and I always send them home with something. I always make sure they have a gift to go home with, and usually it's a new crystal. And then they always get printouts to go home with to put up in their room to remind them of the stuff that they learned that day. And yeah, and it's kind of like I kind of let them dictate a little bit to what we learn about. So if they're really showing interest in one area, we'll really spend time on that. Or if somebody happens to have a really great question, we'll spend time on that. So it's not extremely structured because you can't be that structured with kids. So I kind of let them kind of steer the class a little bit. So, yeah.
I have to say, even talking to you, because, we had an opportunity to talk like a month ago or something. And one of the most beautiful things I think that stood out that you shared about your work was that you really also connect with children and the idea of kindness. And, it seems so, simple, but it's so powerful. And especially when you think of in this day and age where there's so many children dealing with bullying and also, at those young ages we are just starting to connect with our confidence and who we are and all of these things. So the thought and the idea that you're even using all of these tools and helping kids to connect with the kindness aspect of it all is so beautiful. That's really beautiful. Yeah. Can you share a little bit about that and what even brought that to mind for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, like, anti-bullying is really important to me because, it's terrible. I don't think kids should have to go through that in school. And I know I personally, I went through quite a bit of it when I was younger. And that's my biggest fear is for my children to go through that, of course. And so we always kind of taught them how to treat other people, even if they aren't nice to you, is to always just be kind to them and stick up for the people that maybe are getting bullied because they may feel that they don't have somebody to turn to.
Right.
And, it's just, I like in the classes I like to teach them, it's so important to be kind to other people because you don't know what they're going through. And even if somebody is being mean to you, chances are maybe they're not being treated nicely at home, unfortunately. And it just comes through badly at school or in other situations. And then also it's so important to be kind to yourself. And that's one thing that they don't teach, I think, in school is it's so important to be kind to yourself. And it allows, it shows other people how to treat you. So that's really important to me as well.
That is so, I mean, it is. It's beautiful, and it's very inspiring, just the idea that kids are now having access to these types of things. I mean, it speaks to how much the world is changing for all of us. Now, I know that you do teach Reiki very specifically to kids as well. So I wanted to ask you about that, but first, I want to make sure we get in the part about Reiki and parenting, because
that's really a cool thing to hear about how this technique has even, come into your relationship and your interaction with your children. So what has that been like, Reiki and your parenting?
Well, as a parent, everybody has their limits and their stresses and the things that irritate them. And, working with Reiki, it allows you to have so much more patience and allows you to understand things a lot easier. So you're not quick to judge, and you're not quick to raise your voice or just say no so quickly all the time. It really allows you to just be a little bit more open to some of the situations that maybe you weren't open to before. And so that's helped a lot, for sure. And also I love having it and doing it so they see it. I never hide it. I never, tuck away into a room or in a corner and do it privately. I do some by myself, of course. But even like when I'm sending distant Reiki and I have papers in a little zipper pouch that I'm sending to multiple people, like I do it, downstairs, they can see me, or if they come into my room upstairs and they see that it looks like I'm meditating, I can hear them like, oh, Mom's meditating, let's go, and they know to give me some privacy, but they know that they can help out. And, I've had my son just come up and just place his hands on me and try to just send me good energy just because, so it's pretty amazing being a parent and having Reiki in our household, for sure.
That is so beautiful. It's listening to this, I'm just thinking like, wow, really the whole idea we always hear to lead by example, but how this is just so, being normalized for your children and the mindfulness that comes with that. I just think it's really powerful. And I know also when we talked about you really having like a Reiki lifestyle with your children and how you all Reiki plants and water and food and all of these things.
Bath times are always Reiki'd before bed lots of the time too. Like just because, my son gets nightmares and almost every night, can you give me Reiki? Can you give me Reiki? And I'm like, yeah, of course, so they love it.
Now, I have to ask you this too, because you did mention about, sometimes moms feel stuck in just being a mom, and how, you really work with them through this. And even how with your son, I know you mentioned it helps him to, actually it may not have been your son, but working with children and even helping them with their concentration and helping them to be more calm and being able to focus a little bit more. Can you share about that for the parents out there, that like what benefits you've noticed in this on the mom side and on the children's side?
Yeah, absolutely. For the moms, like you said, and like how I mentioned before, sometimes, when you've been a mom for so many years, it feels like you're, just a mom. And I hate saying that because clearly being a mother is so much more, than meets the eye. And sometimes we just lose ourselves, and we don't know how to do anything outside motherhood, or we kind of feel that, or we feel guilty, like we should give ourselves completely to motherhood. So even for me, like it took a long time to figure out what I liked and what I didn't like and what was important to me and the things that lit me up inside, other than my children. And it was really, honestly, like Reiki had a really big part in that, really clearing out like that mental fog and the fear and the denial and all that kind of stuff. And it really allowed me to see what was important and what I wanted to pursue. And that there was so much more out there than, just what was in your household, which is very, very important, obviously. And it's, being a mom and my children, like they're my world, but, there's so much more out there. And, and then with children, my son, he does have, I would say pretty minor, ADHD. He has some focusing issues, and he's super rambunctious. and he's really, really fast, and he gets distracted really easily. And Reiki has helped so much with him. I know when I first got Reiki and I first practiced on him, I laid him on the table and he could not stop moving. In general, his body would, like, his limbs would stop, but his muscles would twitch and his fingers would wiggle and his nose would wiggle and his eyebrows would move. He just physically couldn't stop moving his body. And, you know, within a month or two, he would hop up on the table and he would just lay completely still.
Wow.
Like, there was no wiggling, no, you know, fidgeting, no nothing. And to me, that was really, really huge.
Wow.
And then we also noticed, too, even just from kindergarten to grade 1 this year, huge improvements in his focusing abilities and his learning abilities and his, you know, outbursts in class. They weren't like angry outbursts, but he just will randomly make funny noises, and he's a bit of a class clown. So as soon as somebody laughs, he's like, "Oh, you like that, hey?" He's like, "Well, let me show you more." And then he would start doing more, right? So now he has that under control. So yeah, it's amazing how much he's doing so much better this year compared to last year. It's awesome.
That is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Is it consistent practice? So I know that you say that you work on your kids too, but do they practice on each other? Is it like, do you all sit and have like a meditation together? What does that look like when you are doing or sharing Reiki with your kids and how they do it in their own space?
Well, my daughter, she is a level 1, so she does practice by herself, and she'll do it at bedtime, and she works on our cats a lot. And yeah, especially one in particular that's kind of, you know, her cat, and he loves Reiki, so she gives it to him quite often, and she'll give my mom's dog Reiki, and she's given me Reiki and her dad Reiki, and she doesn't. And actually, you know what? She actually works on her friends at school. If they tripped and hit their knee, she's like, "Oh, would you like some Reiki?" You know, and then, you know, she always offers it, and it's so cute because some people are like, no, like I don't know what that is, and then some people are like, "Oh yeah, absolutely, right." So it's pretty cute. And my son, he is not attuned at all, but he still tries to do it. But I've offered teaching him, but he thinks if he knows how to do it, that I won't do it for him anymore, which is definitely not the case whatsoever, but, you know, his 6-year-old little brain thinks that way, and I assure him all the time, like, no, I promise I'll still do it, and we can kind of all do it together, so he's going to learn over the Christmas break.
That is
so
amazing.
So usually when I work on them, I give them some one-on-one time with just me, and it's kind of more of a private thing when it's with them. So I'll spend some time with my son, and we work on him, and then it'll be my daughter's turn, and then we'll go and work on her. So, yeah.
That is really, really cool. So I want to get to now, of course, you know, I think it's so amazing, and I'm so glad that our paths have crossed and you get to share this because I think, you know, so many people need to hear this, and you do have such an amazing story. Now, you actually teach it to kids. So how did you come around to this, and is it any different? Well, I guess it must be, but what is the difference between like teaching children versus working with adults? And do you have any recommendations for Reiki practitioners who are interested in working with children?
It's definitely a lot different working and teaching adults compared to kids. Adults are good at just listening and following along in a book, and kids get restless really easily, and they get pretty bored when you're just going on and on and on, you know, about the history and all these different techniques and stuff. Kids learn by doing and moving and trying. So I try not to talk so much when I work with kids, and we do a lot more activities and a lot more practicing, and I get them to bring in their favorite like teddy bear or doll, and I teach them how to give that Reiki, so that way they can infuse that teddy bear with Reiki, so that way in the nighttime, if they're having bad dreams, they can cuddle it, right? So that's kind of nice, and just kind of trying to make it a little bit more fun and exciting. and not so much theory, right? So that's kind of the biggest thing, is just making it fun, a lot more fun for them. And of course, their classes aren't nearly as long as an adult class.
Right.
So
who normally shows up? So is it usually, have you noticed, is it, like, so say there is a parent out there and they are wondering, like, oh, I wonder if this would be something to look in for my child. Have you noticed, is it because the parent themselves are like these like yogi or, energy healer people, or is it just anyone who wants to help their children with, I know you said it helps with even helping them with expressing themselves or helping them calm and all of these things. Like, who do you recommend, or who shows up?
Actually, it's quite a wide range of people. It'll be usually somebody where the parent is interested in this type of stuff and they would like their child to be into it as well. So I'll have those kids. And then, of course, there's Reiki parents whose kids, want to be involved in the practice as well. So they come. And then also people that don't really know too much about it, but maybe their child was struggling and they had read it and they've heard about Reiki before and they think it would be such a good tool for their child to have. And so there's spiritual moms and there's yogi moms and Reiki moms, and then it's just all the kids in between are all at different levels. And I have had children come that really just weren't into it whatsoever, and the important part there is not forcing them to do something they don't want to do, just kind of meeting them where they're at and just allowing it to flow if it flows, and if not, then that's okay. There's lots of coloring to do and there's crystals to touch, so not forcing them to do all these things that maybe they just didn't really want to do. So there's all different types for sure.
So do you notice that there's any less resistance with the children who are open to it? Because how like adults, we can be very heady and, we try too hard or think too much. What is the difference with children and working with this technique? Or is there any?
They definitely aren't as shy or as nervous to ask questions, like, as some adults would. Like, I know even in my class, I was kind of nervous to raise my hand and ask questions or stand up in front of the class and share or whatever, right? But most kids aren't really like that. They're not too nervous of that. And especially when it comes to this kind of stuff, if they like it, they're super enthusiastic. And they're always excited to try the next thing, and they want to be part of the instruction and all that kind of stuff. So when they're more interested in it, they're definitely a lot more enthusiastic. And then, of course, there's, some kids that are just relaxed and just like to watch, and that's totally fine too. So, yeah.
Guys, I'm so amazed that I don't have kids. But I do, I think they're so interesting just in that they are so much more open than we are in general because they haven't, gone through the things that kind of harden us in life. So I imagine them working with, all of these tools must be so amazing to watch, and that they would actually be amazing teachers of this. Like just in adults being able to observe the children and like even you said with your daughter, how she just would know which crystals to work with and what to go to and that. So I want to know, because for everyone listening, Santana has a beautiful free offer if you go to her website. And her website is gypsyavenue.ca. It's GYPSY avenue.ca. And if you enter your email address, you'll get a beautiful free PDF, which I thought was really, really cool. I told one of my friends she needs to sign up and get it.
Awesome.
So can you share with people what it is, and maybe just share like one of the tools that are in there?
Yeah, so I wanted to create, something for kids to have, and either, the parents could print it off if they wanted to. I mean, there is a ton of color in it, so, everybody kind of has an iPad, so it can be downloaded into your iBooks, and you can just like look at it like a regular ebook on there as well. So It's 10 different mindfulness activities, and it's just on how to make mindfulness fun. And, being mindful, these techniques will help them control some of their bigger emotions and help them calm down in some situations. And all of them are interactive. So there will be one like as simple as coloring. Coloring releases a lot of stress, and it allows you to be mindful in the moment. And then there's some fun meditation exercises and some breathing exercises. Like one in particular in there is one that I created myself, and it's called birthday cake breathing. And that is a really fun way for kids to learn how to breathe properly in through their nose and out through their mouth. And because most kids are just mouth breathers, they breathe really fast just through their mouth, and they don't know how to coordinate the two. And so birthday cake breathing is where you smell your birthday cake. So that would be you breathing in through your nose slowly and deliberately. And then you can hold it for a second, make a wish in your mind, and then you blow out your candles slowly. So you blow out through your mouth, blowing out your candles. So it kind of gives them a fun visual on how to breathe. So you're, smelling your cake, making a wish, and then blowing out your candles. So stuff like that.
Beautiful. Goodness. I mean,
yeah,
again, it's funny.
One,
it's like, it sounds so like simple, like, oh my God, but it's like, it's brilliant. That's really, really, really cool.
Thank you.
So definitely, if you want any tips or ideas around, helping your children with mindfulness and starting to introduce some of these tools to see, how they may be a benefit to them, be sure to go to her website and, download this. But I want to make sure that we get to also talk about, before you go, I know you have a private Facebook page called High Vibe Mom Tribe. Isn't that what it's called? Yeah. So can you share some about the High Vibe Mom Tribe?
It's just a place, it's a private group, so nobody can see your posts outside of the group, which is really, really nice. And it's just kind of a nice place for moms that are into the spiritual stuff, whether it's very minor or almost an obsession, like where it's just the biggest part of your life. Or, just like if you're starting out and you're just kind of just getting into it and you don't really know too much about it, and you just want to find other women, especially moms, that are kind of into the same things as you. I think it's really, really tough. It just doesn't seem to come up in conversation in real life events. Especially when you're new to it, it's something you don't really talk about very openly. So it's just kind of a nice place for everyone to come together and share, their insights on parenting and children and just motherhood in general, and how, having spiritual practices, work their way in there as well. So it's very non-judgmental, and it's super uplifting, and everybody is so awesome in there, and it's a lot of fun. Yeah,
it's really cool that you have that, and it's one of those things why I love that we have access to things like Facebook, because although you're in Canada, I mean, moms from all over the world, it doesn't matter where you are, you can, join Santana in this group and connect with, moms that are going through similar things and have similar interests. And it's so true. I mean, community is huge in this, and it helps us so much when we have people who understand and we can ask questions and share and all of this. So, yeah, it's a beautiful thing. So how do they find you there? And, how do they find High Vibe Mom Tribe?
If you go to my Facebook page, Gypsy Avenue, there is a link in there, and then there's also a link in my website as well. They're pretty easy to find if you can find those two spots for sure.
Okay, and I know you're also on Instagram, Gypsy_Avenue. Is that correct? Yeah. So Gypsy_Avenue. You can also find Santana on Instagram. However, all of her contact information will be in the show description, so you can click on the link for her website, and I will also put information in there for the High Vibe Mom Tribe. So before we go, I just want to check in with you. Is there anything that you want to share with the parents that are out there about, what this has been for you, this journey, and how it has benefited you and your children overall.
Yeah, absolutely. This journey for me and my family, because it doesn't just affect just me, like it affects all of them. And it's been incredible. Just, allowing things to happen the way they're supposed to, and not overreacting to situations, and understanding people on different levels, and just showing love and kindness to everybody. It's just, it's changed everybody for sure. Since I've been, practicing it, absolutely. And it's just so nice to see, my children moving in this direction easily and not forcibly. It's just they naturally want to do this. And, even my partner, he's interested in learning level 1 as well. And, helping me out and being able to give me Reiki, because I don't get it as often as everybody else. And, to helping me with my classes when I need help and all that kind of stuff. It's really, really great. It's just such a family thing for us. And, it's just made life so much happier and calmer, and just everything just seems more intentional in such a loving way, for sure.
That is so beautiful. And, the things that even jump out when you say that, and even listening to you, you have such a grounded, calm presence about you.
You.
But making things like more intentional and that loving, space. And I think it's huge because, so many people, we do get caught up in our life, and that must be so tough for parents, like you were saying earlier, like, not remembering to slow down and having this type of engagement with your children. It's huge in teaching them these things.
Yeah, and honestly, and it's not saying that I am this perfect Reiki, spiritual mother all the time. Like, I definitely have moments of, when I get, too stressed out, or there's just too much on my plate. I get too caught up on social media. Like, it's, we're all human, and nobody is perfect. It's just, we're all trying our best. And I feel like having this in my life makes it easier. And it's a tool to come back to yourself. And I'm not trying to preach over here that I'm perfect by any means.
No. No, that's so good to say, because I know even a lot of friends of mine who are parents, they, you all can be hard on yourselves when you're not, the perfect parent, or you get upset. So I think that's a beautiful thing for people to hear. And then again, to have this as a tool to really even help you as a parent work through your self-judgment and those moments of upset. So, I just, hopefully there will be, more people who do share this and make it part of, I always say Reiki is a way of life, but really, people have kids and family, and a lot of times they think they have to keep it separate, so to hear your story of it being a lifestyle for your entire family, that may be very inspiring. So I'm so thankful that you came on to share. And are you going to follow up and do the Facebook Live?
Yeah, if that's what everybody wants, definitely I will. Yeah, absolutely then.
I just wanted to check, make sure you weren't too shy for it. So for any of you listening, if you are, have any questions popping up around this and you want to talk to Santana one-on-one and get to ask her some questions, or maybe share your experiences with her about Reiki and children, be sure to join us in the Seeker Circle. And you can go to my Facebook page, which is Yuchi Wellness, and you will see a way to access the Seeker Circle, and we'll schedule a time. You will be notified in that group of when we will get to chat one-on-one with Santana. But before we go again, I just want to remind you, you should definitely go to her website, enter the email address and get the download, because it's really, really, the tools that you have, I'm like, man, this is such an easy way. It's such an easy way for people to be able to connect with their kids and help their children. So it's Gypsy Avenue .ca. So again, it will be down in the show description. And thank you so much, Santana, for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been an honor, definitely, to be on your show and to talk with you and, share my story with everybody. I'm actually really looking forward to the live to see what other people, how they incorporate Reiki or spirituality into their family life, for sure. I'm excited for that.
Totally. I know, me too. It should be a really interesting conversation. So thank you so much, love. And I know, of course, we're going to keep in touch. And for everyone else, I just want to thank you for always tuning in, and everyone who shares their story. It excites me. And that's it for today. Thanks to Santana. We'll see you in the Seeker Circle. And remember to always journey in love.